I never imagined that Sunday would become anything more than routine maintenance. My shed stood there, cluttered with years of accumulated belongings, forgotten keepsakes, rusty equipment, and half-finished projects. Standing among the chaos, sleeves rolled up, dirt smudging my worn shirt, I questioned whether I'd ever tackle this mess. That's when I heard Daniel's voice from the doorway, my neighbor's son. At 25, he'd grown into someone reliable, thoughtful, with that quiet confidence that put people at ease. I'd known him since he was a kid, riding bikes down our street, now a young man who still nodded hello whenever our paths crossed. "Could you use some assistance, Miss Mitchell?" he offered, stepping into the dusty space. His expression was genuine, relaxed. My first instinct was to decline. Independence has its stubborn voice, but the overwhelming disorder behind me won out. "If you have time, that would be wonderful," I confessed. And suddenly, he was there, moving containers, sharing easy conversation, making the task feel manageable. Afternoon light filtered through grimy windows, particles dancing in the beams. The scent of aged lumber and machine grease hung heavy. Sometimes our fingers touched accidentally, and I caught the subtle pause in his movements, like he carried unspoken thoughts. We discovered items I'd forgotten existed. My late husband's camping gear, the sewing kit my mother passed down, a folder of my daughter's artwork. Every object opened a window to yesterday, moments I hadn't known I yearned for. Eventually, I rested on an old bench, observing Daniel work. Something about him felt solid, deliberate, mindful, fully there. "You're like your father," I mentioned quietly. "He never rushed anything, always did it properly." Daniel stopped, resting against some shelving. I try to follow his example. These days, it seems like everyone my age rushes through everything. His candor caught me off guard. Here was someone who genuinely appreciated life's quieter rhythms, those precious instances often dismissed. We continued until sunset painted everything golden, transforming the shed's atmosphere. When we finally paused, the area felt renewed, not just tidier, but somehow gentler, as if the space itself had exhaled. I brought us cold drinks and we settled on the porch stairs, sitting close. Evening insects chirped, freshly trimmed grass scented the air, daylight melting behind distant oaks. "That shed contains your whole history, doesn't it?" he observed gently, gesturing toward the open entrance. I smiled, nostalgic. "It really does. I suppose I hold on to things because I fear losing pieces of who I am." He met my gaze with genuine understanding, not sympathy. "Perhaps it isn't about releasing," he suggested thoughtfully. "Perhaps it's creating room for whatever comes ahead." Those words stayed with me well after he departed. That straightforward, sincere observation shifted how I viewed myself and my journey. Though I didn't realize it then, that afternoon marked just the start. The following dawn brought an unexpected buoyancy. The shed didn't merely appear neater, it felt unburdened somehow, as if clearing debris had also cleared mental cobwebs. I kept replaying Daniel's insight. Perhaps it's creating room for whatever comes ahead. I hadn't anticipated such profound wisdom from someone his age, yet it resonated deeply. Near noon, my doorbell chimed. Unexpectedly, Daniel stood there, holding a container of vintage hardware pieces he'd discovered. "Figured we should complete our project," he offered, that natural grin appearing. The shed seemed peaceful now, heavy disorder replaced by spaces where sunshine could stretch freely. We sorted through remaining items unhurriedly, conversing easily about everything imaginable. He possessed this quality of truly hearing, making me feel acknowledged, not merely heard, but genuinely comprehended. Eventually, I uncovered my collection of personal notebooks, pages browning, handwriting faded, yet each filled with experiences, adventures, celebrations, peaceful evenings together. Daniel stood nearby, reading an exposed entry. "You documented all this?" he asked, clearly impressed. I nodded. I've always enjoyed preserving small moments, those days we overlook that actually define us. He considered this carefully. I should try that. I contemplate existence often, its speed, how simple it becomes to overlook significance. His tone held gentleness, almost fragility, and briefly I glimpsed the younger version I'd known, the child who was considerate, reflective, profoundly observant. While organizing, he surveyed our progress. "You've transformed this area," he noted softly, "not merely arranged, but infused with yourself." Something within me responded. He wasn't discussing the physical location, he meant how I'd preserved life fragments here, all the teachings and disappointments, dreams and memories, and this young person, barely past his own youth, recognized it. During our break, we returned to the porch stairs. I offered him fresh tea, warmth settling on our backs. We didn't need conversation. The stillness felt complete, that rare quietness of mutual comprehension without speech. Then he shared something unforgettable. Meeting my eyes directly, he said, "I hope you understand you needn't shoulder everything solo. Life becomes simpler when you allow others close." I paused, pulse quickening unexpectedly. This wasn't flirtation, it ran deeper. A connection, an acknowledgement, a sincerity that made me want to share beyond just my shed. That night, after his departure, I lingered outside, watching twilight arrive. For the first time in ages, I felt truly perceived, not merely by relatives or companions, but someone who grasped my complexity without hurrying past it. The shed had transformed beyond mere space. It represented how welcoming someone unexpected could alter your perspective entirely. Several days passed, and the shed felt wonderfully sparse, in the best sense. Containers vanished, surfaces cleaned, floors cleared, yet the transformation went beyond physical. It changed how I experienced entering that space. There was breathing room, thinking space, and surprisingly, space for Daniel's presence, too. He arrived that evening, bringing a compact toolkit. "Figured we could address those heavier pieces you mentioned," he explained. That recognizable serenity filled his expression, that wordless steadiness that made accepting help natural. We collaborated smoothly, relocating platforms, shifting old boxes, and I observed how effortlessly our dialogue developed. We discussed beloved literature, memorable films, childhood experiences rarely voiced. It felt natural, unforced, like we were bridging generational understanding without criticism or assumptions. During a pause, while I cleaned a window pane and Daniel secured shelving behind me, he remained quiet momentarily, just observing. Then he spoke gently. "You possess tremendous fortitude, not merely physical, but life resilience. It shows in how you nurture everything surrounding you." Warmth touched my face. Such observations aren't everyday occurrences, particularly from someone younger. But this wasn't empty praise, it was genuine. He perceived me, truly perceived me, and it awakened something delicate and surprising within me. We discovered an old photo collection I'd misplaced. Images of myself, younger, hopeful, surrounded by friends now distant. Daniel indicated one showing me with hiking gear and commented, "Your father would feel proud. I recognize that same steadiness in you." His delivery, so sincere, so authentic, made me understand how much I'd missed having someone acknowledge my quieter qualities, those aspects I never advertised, those pieces I protected. After finishing, we stepped back, appreciating our work. The change transcended cleanliness. It represented clarity. Light poured through clear windows, specks floating in amber rays, air carrying hints of timber and faint petroleum. We returned to the stairs, sharing cold beverages. A peaceful moment stretched between us, silence that felt substantial rather than hollow. Then Daniel spoke words that constricted my chest. You're more capable than you believe, but capability doesn't mean bearing everything solo. It means recognizing who deserves trust. His statement wasn't romantic by conventional standards. It went deeper, more truthfully. It touched something I'd protected for years, reminding me that bonds aren't about years, they're about comprehension, consideration, and being present. Watching sunset filter through branches, I experienced unfamiliar tranquility, understanding that perhaps existence needn't be endured silently, that welcoming someone unexpectedly, tenderly, could be invaluable. In that instant, I understood our shed afternoons exceeded simple tasks. They taught trust, forbearance, and perceiving existence and one another with unprecedented clarity. The next week, Daniel occupied my thoughts more frequently than anticipated, not restlessly or nervously, but with gentle, constant recognition. His manner, so measured, so perceptive, had transformed routine instances into something significant. That Saturday he returned, carrying a small container of materials from his family storage. Thought we might handle those final details, he suggested, that characteristic warmth brightening his features. I welcomed him, experiencing an unusual blend of ease and expectation. We navigated the shed naturally now, like partners who developed their own tempo through recent encounters. Items found places, adjustments were made, and temporarily we worked in peaceful quiet. Then, while I reached for an upper corner, his voice came softly. "You know, Miss Mitchell, we often conceal parts thinking nobody will ever notice enough to care, but everything contributes to your narrative, and it's extraordinary." I faced him, struck by his earnestness. "Extraordinary?" I responded, partially amused, partially moved. "Absolutely," he confirmed. "Every bit, each remembrance, each tiny element, it creates who you are, and that's more valuable than you know." Emotion tightened my throat. Here stood someone considerably younger, yet his observations contained insight that made me stop, reconsider, contemplate. This wasn't false admiration, it was truth, acknowledgement, affecting me beyond any surface compliment. We completed the final organization, and I finally relaxed on the porch, feeling sunshine's warmth. Daniel sat beside me, passing me cool tea, and we remained quiet momentarily, letting peace expand around us. Then he offered something I'll always treasure. Living becomes easier when we invite others in, not to control, but to help carry. You've managed so much, and it's all right to include others. Those thoughts settled deeply, and I recognized their accuracy. For years, I'd attempted everything independently, believing fortitude meant silent endurance. Yet here was this unassuming, courteous, thoughtful person showing me that bonds aren't vulnerability, they're human. While he prepared to leave, I experienced wordless appreciation, not simply for the physical assistance, but for his company, his truthfulness, and the surprising way he demonstrated that existence could be mutual without sacrificing identity. I observed him walking away, evening light illuminating his silhouette, and sensed gentle contentment within. That day, the shed wasn't merely organized, it had become representative of growth, faith, and the subtle strength of genuine bonds. I remained outside longer, drinking tea, considering the recent days. Daniel had arrived as assistants, but left something far more valuable, a reminder that even in maturity, we can still find significant relationships, surprising insights, and the bravery to invite others closer. And in that quietness, I discovered profound tranquility.